I've played my fair share of Mount & Blade Warband. I guess I could call it a comfort game, considering how easy it is to pick up and start a new campaign from scratch. It has that quality that some people might call a curse, where you're ever so inclined to restart more frequently because of the starting potential that it offers. Think of games like Fallout, Elder Scrolls, or any Soulsborne. Just know that, no matter the build, I will keep stealing that gun, because some things just never change. I first stumbled upon Mount & Blade on a free demo disc from a now forgotten gaming magazine, when it was still the original release and not the definitive expanded version, Warband. The only real thing I remember from that is that you started in a dim lit room where you partook in some combat training. Considering the jank that was to be expected from such a big concept tackled by such a small developer team, it had a big enough impact on me that I would later search for a copy of the complete game, back when Steam still wasn't the major platform it is today. While taking some tips from the strategy genre, it never dwelled long enough to steal the attention from player action. You're not an invisible hand controlling a nation over a complex web of minutiae, but a person on their journey to conquer all of the land. If you prefer, you can just lead a trading caravan as it travels across foreign borders, or gather fame and fortune as a mercenary, and maybe solve the continent-wide problem of skull-based drinking. It is your choice to do as you please, at your own pace. It was definitely a surprise when they announced a sequel in 2012, looking to not only improve on all fronts, but also add more features to further the simulation experience. But the years went on, and the development state was kept a mystery, without so much as a release date, and it was unclear if it was going to come out before Valve decided to learn how trilogies are actually pretty popular. At the same time, this only soured further replays of the first one, as every bit of footage they shown was looking like this was going to be such a big leap in quality that it would surpass Warband in every way. To put it in perspective of how long it was, starting from the announcement, I managed to build a new desktop, had both my PSU and GPU die right after the warranty expired, upgraded from 8 to 32GB of memory, lived off on the onboard graphics for 2 years because of the ridiculous GPU prices, and finally got a new one just in time for the official release. It was during all of that I finally discovered that in Warbands you could press Ctrl Space to speed up the movement of the map. I bet I could have saved a couple of hours from my total playtime if I had learned that a few years sooner. Even then, I didn't play it right away because I already know how these things go, and if I already hang around for a decade, I could very well wait an extra month or two. But now, after a few more patches, I'm ready to go right in and explore what Bannerlord has to offer. I don't consider myself an expert in either this or the first game, so don't expect any in-depth insight into the mechanics or a comprehensive list of improvements, as that would take too much time and enjoyment of what matters to me in a game. Also, just keep in mind that this has been recorded in a cinematic format, because God knows I don't have the storage space to capture this at a high frame rate, so please excuse me for that. One day I'll get there, just not today. And without further ado, here's my own journey through the lands of Caldaria. The game begins by explaining the backstory of the setting, which happens 210 years before Warband, but I don't really care about those particulars. There's a campaign mode where you start with your family getting captured, which is certainly a more focused approach that doubly works as a long-form tutorial for new players to the series, but I highly prefer the freedom offered by the sandbox option. Just you versus the world, but even so, caution is still recommended, because the world can hit back pretty hard. Right away, you could see the quality leap in comparison to the original game. The character creator is not just a menu with walls of text, you actually get some visual elements to go with it, together with some much needed user interface refinements as well. Selecting your character's culture has these neat illustrations with direct explanations to each of their own unique perks. But I pay no attention to the minutiae, as I chose Empire purely because the image looks cool. Yeah, I am going with that level of foresight. Sometimes it do be like that. The character models also are of a much higher quality, with a nice consistent art style that strikes a nice balance between realism and fantasy. They do suffer from statue syndrome though, so you can definitely make some pretty good looking characters, but only until they try to make expressions. Really, when I think about it, I guess all games with a character creator have that problem, so it's not something that I pay much mind to. After fiddling with the random button a few times, next comes the character's background. Once again, improvements all around, with the game even showing you the parents with the different looks depending on the chosen culture and specific past. It's this kind of small details that go a long way for the initial immersion on the campaign. This goes even further by showing the character's various steps of life, where each choice contributes to the final stats. Finally, they just straight up say what each choice gives you, as in the original one you had to basically have a guide for that. Some quality of life that certainly helps with the repeated playthroughs. You're also given customization options over the family's banner right away, with some neat choices to proudly carry into battle. As for my character, he originally comes from the Empire lands, in which his parents lived their lives as honest forest folk, causing him to grow up getting into fights with other kids more often than normal because of their attitude towards his simple roots, later putting that fury to fire as he started working as a smithy for the village when he grew of age. That seemed to calm him down, as he later joined with the scouts for a less intense workplace, spending roaming the dense yet peaceful forests that surrounded his village. Even so, when the push came to shove, he showed everyone that he can still fight back to protect the few he cared about. He seemed to have all of his life planned on settling down on the same place that saw him grow up, but after a certain accident later in his life, he decided to take his leave right at the age of 30, still remembering deep down the thrill for the fight, to stand his ground for respect and, if possible, for peace of heart. Setting the difficulty to an overall medium, plus Iron Man mode, which only lets you have one file which automatically saves when you exit, I was thrown into Caldaria, near the city of Danustica, which belongs to a part of the Empire. Right away, zooming out as far as possible, you can see the map is quite different, even if it's supposed to be the same place as the previous game. Let's not mince words here, this is basically still Europe, and I'm okay with that. I already have an overall idea of that place, so it's easier to know what to avoid. Still unfamiliar to this world and its state, I am left to wander as a mercenary without a cause, shifting my attention into building my reputation and myself as a starting goal. There are a lot of stats to know here, but for this playthrough I decided to go with a focus to combat, so a lot of points are put into skills like one-handed, two-handed and bow. These are usually my weapons of choice, as I don't particularly care much for polearms and crossbows. I personally like to go for a two-handed style with a normal sword if the game allows me, but Mountain Blade only lets you two-hand big swords, so that's how I roll here. Bows are definitely a must, cause I can't go without that Kodak moment of shooting an arrow across the battlefield right into the enemy's face. It's just a thing of beauty every time. The problem with where I started is that it's pretty much impossible to get a two-handed sword in this corner of the world, so I begin to experiment with one of the new features of the series, smithing. It's pretty cool, I can adjust the different parts separately and choose the weapon stats accordingly, which is something to keep in mind when you're looking for a specific weapon for a certain playstyle, or just completing orders. Yes, you can complete the smithing jobs and actually get some good money out of it, so it's a win all around. But to forge my first sword, I need more resources, and for that I will want to do some classic looter hunting. And to not die right away, I visit the arena to practice my skills and also get ready for future tournaments. Practice still works like before, but apparently they have a different definition of blunt weapons. Youch. In case you don't know, you can control your attack and block direction by a look or movement input, but you can also have it done automatically. I personally go with auto block, but with manual attack, which I feel is a fair middle ground for complexity. As soon as I'm reacquainted with the combat flow, I make the city of Mazia my first stop, as a tournament is planned to take place there. And in the way, I fight my first band of bandits, which seems to have a weakness to being shot in the face. As some sort of premonition, the first round of the tournament has me using a bow, which is usually a bad idea, especially at the start where it's just pure chaos. Even then, it all goes pretty smoothly, and I get a good pocket full of money, plus some cool armor. So I instantly recruit some troops to have some people around to tell me how cool I am, which unfortunately doesn't equal to a good fighting ability, so they all die right in the first skirmish. I still look cool with my fancy new armor, so I recruit some more troops and try again, but they all die again. Before recruiting more people to their deaths, I instead go look for a companion to help me with this whole war business. As I make my way into the city's tavern and I look around for someone that will fit the role. But unfortunately, all I find is an Irishman, so I quickly take my leave. Nothing against the Irish, I just don't have any potatoes to protect, and I don't want their skills to be wasted in unimportant matters. I try it yet again with even more recruits, but this time I also end up eating shit. After the world proved its point, I decided to be better at picking my own battles. So easy in fact that I went into the next fight with 100 and more people on my side by mistake. Because I entered the fight when a neutral party was rolling by, so those 4 fellas end up being completely destroyed. Such is the life of those struggling to survive in this war-ridden world. I proceeded to stumble into an hideout, so I also killed everyone there, especially their leader, as some sort of revenge for acts unbeknownst to them. This finally gives me all that I need to craft my weapon of choice, so I trade my fancy armor for some cool leather outfit as I prepare to strike down my hammer onto fate itself. And so begins the legend of the man whose body was steel and fire his blood. The one who went to create over 1,000 blades and overcome countless battlefields. Not once retreating, not even once being victorious, this was his only path. Unknown to death, nor known to life, he was the bone of his own sword, and with no regrets that his hands would never hold anything, he took these exact words to heart. Unlimited Blade Works. Traveling all over the continent to hone my skills, living for each moment of the adventure while crossing paths with exceptional companions and enemies alike. This was just the beginning of the journey, but what I hope to be enough to have you interested in carving your own trail into glory. So, was the sequel worth all the wait? Most definitely. While Warband has some comfy exploration, in part by the scale of the map that quickly leads to a sense of familiarity, Bannerlord really doubles down on the scale, from its world to the massive battles powered by the new game engine. But really, I didn't even scratch the surface with this video, as this game has so much more to offer, which is certain to get even more polished as time goes on. Let's just hope that if it ever gets DLC, it's not as bad as Warband's.